Welcome to our Austin Tennis Academy parent education meeting. I'm excited that we've got special guest Julio Godreau here from the USTA Texas section. Julio's been going around the state of Texas presenting some information about the upcoming changes, the changes here in 2020 for our junior competitive system, and the more significant changes in 2021. He's been going around and presenting this all around the state, and he was kind enough to come visit us and present for us. And then Coach Newman's going to be in just a few moments. And so when he is done presenting, the three of us can kind of do a little panel discussion and answer tons of questions. So hopefully he can answer a lot of your questions in the presentation and the slides, but let's try not to slow him down, because otherwise he'll take our whole entire hour and you guys won't get to talk to Coach Newman and I. So I'm gonna let Julio take over here.
I think he's assuming that you guys want to talk to Coach Newman.
Very funny.
Okay, so welcome. Thanks for coming. Grateful to have the opportunity to share the information, especially to be able to do it face-to-face instead of you just being able to read it somewhere. I'm going to go over, there were some changes that we're going to implement in 2020. Those changes that we're implementing in 2020, we did this decision to put those in place because they will remain as they are in 2021. So we were very conscious to not make a change, to then make another change on top of what's also coming. After I go over the changes that we're doing in 2020, and I'll explain to you, give you some rationale behind why those changes are being done, I'm going to show you the changes that are coming in 2021, how they apply to the Texas section, because as you know, we're the only ones who do what we do. So it's very unique how they apply to us. So I'm going to get started here. 2020. 2020, you may have heard that there were some changes already. Maybe about beginning of last year, the rumor was that it was going to start this year and that everything was changing already this year. As you know, Super Champ, Champ, and Challenger, they stay as you know them before for 2020. There's no change to the names. There's some changes to how you move between one and the other, and we're going to go over them in a little bit in one of the few next slides. 2020. What changes are we having in 2020? 2020, there's going to be an increase in offerings. Why are we increasing the offerings? Because there's some areas of the section that were neglected in the amount of tournaments that they had available to them. And the second one is, in 2021, our events are no longer what I'm going to refer to as open entry. What I mean by open entry is right now, if you're a Super Champ player, qualified as a Super Champ, and you register for a Super Champ tournament, you know you're guaranteed that you're going to play that event. In 2021, that system goes away, and it is a system in which, let's say that there is a draw, and it's going to be limited. The draw is going to be limited to, say, 32 players. You would apply to the event. If based on your ranking or your standing, you meet the criteria in those top 32 players, then you're accepted into the event. If some of you already have taken your players to play national tournaments, that's exactly how national tournament does their selection. And some of you will be very concerned about this working or not working. I can tell you that there's 16 other sections plus national that has been doing that system for over 20 years. And parents and players and coaches figure out a way to make it work for them. The second one is champ players. In 2020, we would like to see more players become supers. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow champ players to play twice a month and have both of them count towards their ability to become super. It may have triggered a question of why do we want more players as supers? As we go through the slides, it'll make sense why we want more players to be supers once we get into the area that talks about rankings. Entry fee. There's two things for the entry fee. One, we needed to find a way in which the entry fee becomes more standardized with the other sections, because in 2021, we're shifting to a common system nationwide. Means all 17 sections are national are doing the same identical thing. So our entry fees need to be somewhat in alignment with what some of the other sections are doing, because our players will be able to go play there and their players will be able to come play here. The second one is, it's not known fact how the financials of tournaments work. So I'm going to go over and show you tonight how they work. You're going to see it's often shocking when I share with you as parents and the consumer that out of the entry fee that you pay for a tournament, the USTA Texas gets $1. The rest of the amount of money that you pay, it's utilized to operate the event and to compensate the individual that most of you know as a tournament director. Tournament directors are our partners, but they don't work for us. We empower somebody to run that event. Subsequently, they're supposed to be then making money of being able to run that event. I would say that probably 70 or 80% of our events are run by what's called CTAs, which is community tennis associations, with the intent that by running the event, they are the ones who profit from whatever dividends the event creates, and they're then to use those dividends and that money to be able to help tennis in their community to continue to grow. The next one, schedule friendly. Some of you may have already seen it. When you're playing at the super level, the tournaments that normally were 3 days that played on Mondays. On Mondays in the past, we required 96 players to have to possibly miss school, or parents have to miss work. That's changing. We're falling in alignment with, so if some of you have played level 2 national tournaments, with what level 2 national tournaments do. So the only matches now that are played on Monday will be the A draw, main draw, and consolation finals. So we've gone from 96 players having to miss school, parents having to miss work, to 16 players having to miss school and miss work. And the last one is 35 to 60. So starting in March 1st, and why March 1st? There are things that are still coming from national that are being released as they continue to work on this new system. We couldn't really make this decision to implement on January 1st. That was our original objective, but it's going to be implemented as of March 1st or go into effect. If a player is aging up, it used to be the percentage to remain at that level was 35%. We're increasing that percent to 60. So if the player is within the top 60% and they're a super, they age up, they remain a super. If they're out of the top 60%, then they will still go down and be a champ. And the same is applied to the champ division. I'll move along. Increasing offerings. So that's our beautiful state. That is the central triangle that we all know. And I think in this room we're all blessed that we live within that triangle. And the reason I say that is because over 80% of our tournaments happen in that triangle. Why do 80% happen in that triangle? Because over 87% of our consumer live in that triangle. So there's no justification to move them out, but we just simply need to create new events. So in that triangle, no events are being taken or replaced. They remain as they were last year. But we identified 2 other triangles. Those 2 other triangles for this coming year, each one of them will be guaranteed 12 two-day challenger events and 6 champ events within them. And the objective of why the 12 challenger events and the 6 champs, the 12 challenger, and the idea is that a player will be able to play at least 6 of those 12 without having to commit to a hotel night. And the 6 champ events, same concept. They'll be able to play at least 3 of those in their area without having to make a commitment to a hotel night or hotel stay. I already told you the champs can play 2 a month, so I'm going to take that out of the slides. Entry fee structure. So at the very top now, you're seeing Texas old 2019 entry fee structure. I'm going to show you right next to it underneath. Now it's going to show Florida. The colors are matched to show you to match the level that our event matches with Florida. And you can see how we were a little bit off in what we were charging in our entry fee structures. I'm going to show you now, that's the new entry fee structure. It shows you the new rates that we're going to and the increases. So reason number one for a change in entry fees was to be better matched with what other sections are charging. Reason number two, we'll go over it now. This slide now is showing you 5 events. Of those 5 events you're looking at right there, it doesn't go into the screen, but there's 5 columns. Each one of those columns is 1 event. At the bottom, it shows you the expense that it took to run that tournament, and the very last line that goes across shows you the amount of players that played in that tournament.
Could you go over the entry fee? We couldn't see back here at all. Is it going up or down?
Entry fees went up. Entry fees went up.
Okay.
Super champ level, they're all $65. So, I mean, some of them were 56. They were ranging from 56 to 65. Champ level, it went up to 50. 2-day challenger level went up to 45. 1-day challenger is 35. Future stars, it's 20. And the open events, it went to 45 for singles and 10 for doubles. It's hard to see that screen. I know it's a little bit small. What I'm going to show you now is based on the tournament, and those are actually 5 profit and loss statements from 5 tournaments. So based on that, in our old structure at $33 per player entry fee, you can see at the bottom the profit margins or the loss that a tournament director was incurring in order to run the event. As I shared with you before, tournament directors are independent. If they're not profiting from running the events, soon we'll run out of individuals that want to do it. We couldn't take it on ourselves. In our office, the staff is 4 that work the competitive side of tennis. So 4 people couldn't run 700 plus tournaments a year. So we need the partners willing and wanting to run them in order to be able to have the events available to the players. At the 45, at the new entry fee structure for that level of event, you can see how the profits margin change. That event that you're seeing there, those 5 events, that's about a 45 to 50 hour work event from the moment the tournament director starts working on making the draws to the moment that the event has been completed. So what do we expect? Somebody that runs an event that takes 45 to 50 hours worth of work, we expect them to be profiting around $2,500 if the event has 200 players or more. (2021) changes. So I'm going to show you first why the changes are needed, and then we're going to talk about the changes. So why the changes are needed. This is Texas only. So this is Texas specific you're seeing right there. And you can see that in the Texas tennis population in the junior world, 58% of it is challenger players, 25% of it is champ players, 17% of it is supers players. So in other words, not that I want to, and not that this is our objective, but to give you an example, I could probably take out the supers and the champs and still continue to exist because I'm way over half of the amount of players. But if I take away the challenger player, I probably cease to exist pretty fast because as soon as those supers eventually age out, and those champ players are gone, I'm done. There has to be an entry level because no kid is born, grabs a racket for the first time, and suddenly they're a super. They have to go through the process of starting at the challenger level and moving along the way. So we know that challenger is 58% of it. Now we know that in the last 7 years, the trend has been that challenger group has decreased by 38%. So the consumer is speaking very loudly that they don't like the product. And again, these are Texas specific. When we get to the numbers that are national, all inclusive of 17 sections, they're actually higher in the amount of players leaving. Okay? Now, again, only challenger specific. On the 2-day, 34% of the challenger level players did not play a second tournament, and 52% did not play more than 2. So the consumer, again, screaming loudly. 58%, our largest population size, in 7 years has decreased 38%. And then looking specifically at the year 2017, in that year, 34% of the kids didn't play more than 1, 52% didn't play more than 2, and by the time I get to 4, I'm already in the 80-something percent that didn't play more than 4. So they're trying, they just don't like it. This is now a national statistic. At the national level, 60% of the players are not playing more than 1. So again, the numbers are alarming, and in any kind of business, this will trigger an immediate, very active, aggressive involvement to see what can we do to turn the ship around. And that's what's taking place. So another statistic to look at, a very interesting one, is that there's 4.5 million tennis players in the country, of which only 4% play in the USTA system. And that's, to most people, that's shocking. Well, I can tell you that in Texas, in our system, there's 9,000 players, roughly. In high school tennis in the state of Texas, it's 22,000 plus players. So to give you a more direct understanding that, yes, that number is probably very accurate, that there's 4.5 million players and only 4% of them are involved with us. For numerous reasons. I'll give you one example. If there's any of you in, I'll be 49 this coming year. I'm either 49 or 50, one of the two. I'm getting to that age. I can't remember how old I'm going to be. So I started playing tennis when I was 6, competitive when I was 8, and I can tell you that that makes up about 42 years that I've been exposed to the game, whether as a player or a coach. It hasn't changed. The system of tournament, what parents and players are having to deal with and face with, it's identical. The only thing they've added to that wasn't in place when I was a junior player, it's consolation. But the fact that you sign up and you don't find out when you play the first match until a certain period of time, and when you find out, they hold you hostage to see when you play your next match. You can't plan, you can't have a life. You're literally subjected to tennis. We own you. You belong to us. When you look at the business world, I challenge you to find a business that is currently open, that you are aware of, you went to maybe 30 or 40 years ago, that it's operating on the exact same model that they did 30 or 40 years ago. And the answer for the most part I've gotten is no, that doesn't exist. There's businesses that are still open, but they've changed their model of operation. To the point that I made a comment, I went to Dallas, and I did this in Dallas the other night. And I have to confess, I stopped at Burger King on the way there, and I hadn't stopped at a Burger King in a long, long time. Well, to my surprise, do you guys know Burger King now sells mozzarella sticks? To me, that was shocking, because what I recall of Burger King, it was either a Whopper or a Whopper Jr., fries, and onion rings. That was it. The variety on the menu. Fish sandwiches at Burger King. Really. Fish, chicken sandwiches. So it comes to show you how businesses have to grow and evolve with consumer trends and what the consumer wants and needs. And the USTA is something that in our tournament system, nothing had really changed in God knows how many years. I'm going to also now show you our metrics. So when you look at that screen, to the left, it's the 17 sections. Next to it, to the right, you see JTT at the top. Those are the metrics the 17 sections are judged by in the JTT area, junior team tennis area. And to the right, it's the metrics by which the competitive world is being judged. And the only reason I want to show you that is I want you to acknowledge how much red versus black you see in that graphic. So it's not just Texas. It's something that needed a change nationwide. We're all struggling, and we're not the only sport that's struggling. Other sports are struggling just as well or worse because we're all competing now with video games and other ways in which our kids get involved and spend time doing. But from our own personal end, whether we are the worst or we're not, we need to do something anyways. So I gave you some statistical data to help you understand why the changes are needed. National, aside from the statistical data, they wanted to find out also what are perhaps the things that the consumer truly wants and needs. So they contracted University of Central Florida to do a research for them. And they surveyed parents, players, and coaches. And it's a huge book. It looks like a book of pages with the results of that survey. But I'm going to provide you just a very concise summary of what came out. And what came out was they're seeking for something that it's easy to find, supports local play, it's affordable, supports multi-sport participation, it's well-run and officiated, better trained coaches, that progressions are based on skill development, and they want more team events, team competition along the pathway. So the first one that I found very interesting was the word easy. And when I heard easy, I immediately draw into our system. I've been involved in, I told you when I started playing, I then coached for 20 plus years, 10 years out of the middle states, 10 years out of the southern section. And when I came into my role in Texas 4 years ago, it was shocking to me to find out what it is that we did. Because it doesn't exist not only anywhere in the country, I don't think it exists anywhere in the world where we set ourselves to try to do. What we set ourselves to try to do is probably the optimal system, because the grouping by skill levels should be optimal for development of players and for players' enjoyment of what they're exposed to. The problem is that when things grow, they become a lot more difficult to be somewhat controlled to a degree that will continue to guarantee its success. And I think our system at some point grew, and that created some of the issues that it encounters now. I'll give you one before we move along. The open entry into our events. So any Celine Dion fans in the group? Nobody likes Celine Dion. Huh? You love her, huh? I know, she's pretty good. I keep trying names. The other day I said like Beastie Boys and nobody knew what I was talking about. So Celine Dion's awesome. Let's say Celine Dion's coming to concert in Austin next month. Do they sell a limited amount of tickets to assure the experience the individual will receive based on the level of ticket they purchased? Or do they sell a ticket to everybody that wants to go? It's a limited amount, correct? There's a reason. Anybody here, I don't know, can you give me your favorite restaurant? And don't go really fancy, just kind of in between, like a Chili's, Applebee's. Which one's your favorite, if there's such a thing?
Taco Flats.
Taco Flats. So tomorrow at lunch, Taco Flats has announced that everybody who shows up at 12 noon tomorrow will be allowed to go in the restaurant, find a spot where you can sit down, and they'll serve you food. Is that how it works? Well, in restaurants it doesn't either, because they have to assure a certain level of experience to the ones who are actually getting to sit down and are being served food. For some reason, we think that in our tournaments, everybody who's a super, we're going to let everybody in, and we'll be able to somewhat control the quality of product that is being provided to the consumer. It's impossible. Again, I've been tournament director, referee. So on my second or third day in the job, I walked into my boss's office and I said, I feel terrible for our tournament directors. And he said, why? I said, I feel that we set them up to fail before they even start. Because in reality, the rest of the country doesn't really run a tournament with more than 256 players unless it is something very, very special. Like, for example, the Slam to us. The Slam will continue to be a big event. But in 2021, you're probably not going to experience an event larger than 256 players. And the objective is that it will allow the tournament director with more leadway know exactly how many courts are needed. Who played, I know there was an issue, who played the Supers in San Antonio a couple of weeks ago? You did. Huge delays they had, huh? They fell behind like 3 hours, 4 hours. Well, things that the consumer becomes unaware of is that 10 days prior to the event starting is when that tournament director found out that she had 100 players more this year than she did the year before. What is she to do? Our system doesn't allow her to set a cap that it can only be this many players. She seeked to get 2 other sites. They were not available anymore. She can't get them. And we can say, well, she could have planned way ahead in advance. She couldn't, and I'll tell you why. More than half of tennis parents wait until the last 48 hours to actually register for the tournaments. So she was completely unaware that there was going to be a need or 100 players more. That triggers the need for more court sites, which didn't result, it triggered a delay at the event that you had to endure. That triggers the need for more site directors. So perhaps you have now that she's having to hire site directors and roving officials that she's already had before. She was not pleased with the quality of work that site director, that official did, and had already said to herself, I'm not hiring them again. But she has to. So our event is great in the sense that you register and you know we're going next month, we're going to go to, I don't know, Dallas. But then it's really weak in the side that if it was to grow, it's already becoming an issue. And if it was to grow any larger than what it is right now, it really becomes a problem. Because at some point, you're going to have sites and cities that just simply will not be able to accommodate the amount of players who are showing up to play in the tournament. Okay, so the first word, if you recall, was easy. So let's go back to easy. And I want you now to kind of remove yourself from what we have in Texas. So don't look, if you showed up here tonight to tell me how much you like Super Champ and Challengers and that you heard it's going away and that you don't want to let me leave here until I either change it and put it back in place or I'm dying here. I'm not making it home. Okay? So if you were the one who showed up to argue that with that much energy for what we currently have, I want you to remove yourself for a minute now when I show you this and look at it really objectively and try to tell me if this looks easy to you. So our Texas system, Challenger, it's 2 systems, 1 day and 2 day. It has 2-point charts and 6 different options. The Champ level, 1 system, 1-point chart with 7 options. Now, let's complicate things a lot. Because when you're a challenger, you have to figure out this way, unique way, to become a champ. And then when you become a champ, it's like you don't get to repeat what you did to get to become a super. It's a whole new way that you have to figure out how to make it to be a super. And I came to find out maybe the reason why they did it. And when they did it, they had good reasons to do it. But it really complicated the experience of the players, the parents, and the consumer. Now the Super Champ level, it's a 5-tier system with 11-point charts with 35 possible options, 5 possible bonus point tables, and that non-restricted entry system that I told you we talked already, and 3 independent rankings. So 8 systems overall, 14-point charts, 48 possible options. That just doesn't seem easy to me. So you can see immediately right off the bat how complex we are. If you're sitting in this room and your child plays tennis and you play tennis, when you got started with the sport, you understood how to read a draw. You understood how to read the time that you were supposed to play. None of this, it's new to you. Got news to you. A lot of the parents that were coming through our system now didn't play tennis. So when they come into our system and they get for the first time that you sign up and there is a draw, well, what is a draw? And where do I find where I play? Who do I play? What time do I play? And the most shocking to them, okay, it says there that I play on this day at 9. Is that it? Oh, no, no, no. You're going to play at that time. And after you play at that time, you're very quietly and calmly going to go sit down in the corner like a good boy. And you're going to wait until we put some time online when you play next. And you're going to find it on your own. Don't come asking us. Because it's in the tournament. How many people are in the tournament? 500 plus. That tournament director has no time. Oh, and we didn't tell you either that we understand this is your kid's first tournament, and it could be that your son's playing against a kid that just got bumped back down because they aged up and they used to be a champ. So I'm sorry, your kid's going to get massacred out there, but please enjoy the experience and try it again. So you're seeing that the system had a lot of gaps and flaws. So I'm going to wait for that screen to finish. That's a very interesting screen. It just finished. Okay, so as sections, I don't know how much you know, but we're not automated. So in Texas, for example, your kid played a tournament this past weekend. The tournament finished on Sunday. On Monday, we have a staff that shows up at the office. And I don't know, what's your son's name or daughter? Alicia. Alicia played the tournament. So the staff goes in and finds Alicia and finds how Alicia did in the tournament, finds out how many points Alicia gets in the tournament. Then they go into our database that we have at our office. We extract it, we open it up. We add Alicia to that list, and then we had to do that for every player that played a tournament this past weekend. It's all manually done. And after it's manually done, then the new standings and rankings are published, and then they are posted online for you to see. That's why if you think about it, we run very meaningful tournaments, the Challengers, Champs, and Supers, on the same 2 weekends of the month. And then we had the open events the other 2 weekends of the month. And the open events, if you've gone through the system, you know that there's very little change or impact to rankings and standings that comes from the open events. So they don't take as much time. Why do we do that? Because it takes a staff about 2 weeks to be able to repopulate and recreate and show you the new standings and rankings. That's in our case. We're very unique. We're the most radical because we have 3 systems within one. All the other sections, the 16 sections, only have one system. So it's a lot easier for them to do this management. But what we came to find out is that they still all do something slightly different than the other. So you had literally 17 sections and national all doing something different, not exactly the same. We went to national and we said, we need technology. We need because right now, how many clicks does it take you guys to register for a tournament? I think it's 13 clicks every time. And right now, if you were to buy something in Amazon, how many clicks does it take you to buy it? 2. Home Depot, how many? 3. So when we are that far behind, we need something to change. So we seeked new technology from National. And National came back and said, well, if we create new technology, it has to be operating within one common system. We can't make new technology that would allow that mess, because that mess is all the systems that each of the other sections and us have of what we call tournaments. So like in there, you can see SCMZ, CMZ, Challenger 2-day, Challenger 1-day, and all the ones that the other sections have, all the different names. So this is another reason why we find ourselves in trying to come up with one common system. So the new system. So far in the past, the objective has been to grow tennis in Texas, because I work for the Texas section. Florida, their objective has been to grow tennis in Florida. Southern, to grow tennis in Southern, and so on. In the new system, their objective is to collectively seek to grow tennis in the country. More cohesive, more together. So the new system has one common system for all sections. It's the same straight across the board. One common ranking. Okay, newsflash. This one's important for you to listen carefully. So if I'm starting to lose you, come back. Stay here with me. In the new system in 2021, your best 6 tournaments count. Currently, if you can recall, your best 5 count. New system, best 6. Of that best 6, because in the new system, you can go play anywhere in the country. You're not locked to only playing in Texas. If you're playing in the 12 and unders, a maximum of 2 of the 6 can be in another section. If you're playing 14s, 16s, or 18s, a maximum of 3 can be in another section. What that means is that if I'm playing, say, 12s, and I can have a max of 2 at a section, I need to have 4 from Texas, 1 from Florida, and 1 from Southern Cal. Or I can I have all 6 from Texas? Yes. It's giving you the option. Then now if your child has a relative that lives in Southern Cal and you want to send him for a month there, you can send him for a month. They can play tournaments. It counts towards their ranking. Everything counts. But you're not locked having to jump through 35 hoops to make that happen. Where right now, very often, that's not even available to you. The next one common point chart. So it's the same point chart for all the sections and for national. There's no longer, what was it, 40, was it 48 point charts? Yes, 35 or 48, something like that. It's just one. And the next one, players are allowed to play anywhere in the U.S. I love that one. I love that one for many reasons. Again, we talked about the relative one, vacation. You have a work convention in I don't know, in Hawaii. Take the family along with you. Children can play a tournament while you're there. Or you can go to Puerto Rico, because it's the Caribbean section. Play a tournament the first weekend, then stay with the family for a week of vacation there. These are things that before we didn't have available to us. I'm going to show you this screen just to show you. I want you to go back to when you first started to get involved in tennis and get your child involved in tennis, and you were probably looking or seeking for something to give you direction of what is the pathway that I'm going to follow. How do we get involved? And if you can recall, it was extremely difficult because it didn't really exist. It had a bunch of pitfalls and holes in between. This is what the new pathway would look like to someone that's coming into the sport. And it's a lot more clear how to navigate through a sport for a parent to understand. What we're going to talk about tonight sits in that top rectangle that just got surrounded in red. And those are the top 7 levels. That's what's going to be called the Net Generation Tour. New system, it's 7 levels. You can see to the left of it, the length each of those tournaments is projected to be. The one that I want to clarify for you to understand, it's the bottom one is number 7. Number 7, it says half a day to 1 day. But in reality, we don't want really anything longer than 4 hours for a particular age group. We want the parent to be able to know that their kid's tournament this week, it's on Saturday, and it's on Saturday from 8 to 12. The same way that you can sample other sports. If you decide you want your kids to try soccer, like I did with my girls, and I knew that for the next 8 weeks, from Saturday from 10 to 12, 10 to 11, I had to referee a game. 11 to 12, I had to coach a game. And that was my involvement with my kids' soccer, trying it out. And the rest of my weekend was mine. So the objective of that product is to create the ability for kids. If you can recall, one of the things they wanted on that survey was multi-sport participation. By multi-sport participation, they didn't mean I play tennis this weekend, soccer next weekend, swim the next weekend. No, they mean I can have my kid play tennis on Saturday morning, have them play soccer Saturday afternoon. That's what they meant by multi-sport participation. Now, a little bit, this is another slide that now, again, it's one of those that it's a brain teaser, so I need you to pay attention, stay with me, because this is extremely radical to us in Texas. It's very different because right now, we will be seeking right now, you want me to tell you that if I'm a super champ player, which of those levels can I sign up to play in? And the new system doesn't work that way. In the new system, a player that say we consider to be a level 7 player could sign up for a level 1 tournament. Can they play in it? Yeah. If there's an open spot in the draw and they get in, they're allowed to play. So you're not limited anymore to just qualifying to play in this particular tournament. I think that to you as a parent will be a benefit. I think that to coaches will be even a greater benefit. And the reason I say that is coaching 10 years out of the Southern section, especially in the ages of 12 and under, 14 and under, 16 and under, I like to see my players had at least a 500 record. I didn't want them losing more than they won. How did I control that? Because I can sign them up for different level tournaments. So if I sign up a player this weekend for a level 3, and it was let's say it's a compass draw, so they lost 4 matches in a row, next month I'll probably sign him for 2 level 4s to try to get them to 4-4 in their win and loss. Right now, I often look to our rankings, and it's not surprising that I find players in Super Champ, for example, with a record of 1-19 in the last year, or 3-18 in the last year. That cannot be fun for the player, and it certainly cannot be fun for the parent. You know, the amount of effort on the parent probably equals the amount of effort on the player. The player's doing it out there on the court and competing, but the parent has to make all the sacrifices to go, because we're very time demanding, and the financial sacrifice to support what the kid's trying to develop and accomplish. So that's another, you can almost say it's another flaw that perhaps our current system as it sits has. Players qualify based on the level of competition that they're exposed to. And if the level of competition in a particular tournament was lower, they will find themselves becoming a super, but they're not really a super yet. But now they're stuck there until they age out. There's no other options for them to pursue or play in. What I'm going to show you now is what we anticipate the patterns of play of our players will be in the new system. But it doesn't mean that they're locked to only playing at the levels I'm going to show you. Does that make sense? Okay, so a Challenger one-day player most likely will play level 7s. A Challenger two-day player will play level 6 and level 7s. An Open player will play level 4, 5, and 6s. A Champ player most likely will play 5 and 6s. A Super Champ player will play 1, 2, 3, 4, and some 5 events as well. Can I have a player? I'll give you an example. Can I have a player that is top 20 in the country in the girls 12s, but this weekend I have a tournament in my hometown. It's convenient. It's even at my club where we train and play, but it's a level 6. Should a player that's top 20 in the country in the girls 12s play a level 6 tournament at her local club because it's convenient? Yes, just not in the 12s. So I can have her play in 18s. In the new system, you're not locked to only being able to go up one it's a rule that even for me in our section, every time it comes up, I have to go look it up in the book to find it again, because I know we have a limitation of how high a player can go play up in order to remain qualified in certain ways. Okay? This is the most important slide of all night. Okay? It's coming. I'm going to release it. Okay. So you have a current sectional ranking and a current national ranking as you know them. They're going to be running this year like you always know them, correct? Good. There's also a shadow ranking that national is running. Using the results the players have in tournaments this year, but with the point charts that are going to apply to 2021. Did that make sense to everybody? You didn't follow me. You were kind of...
A question.
Yes.
So current tournaments will be allocated a level 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 by with your input, hopefully.
Yes, our objective is that by March, once National has actually released the tables and we all can see them, that when you go online in Tennis Link, for example, it'll say ATA, and in parentheses next to it, it says SCMZ, and in parentheses next to it, it'll say 2021 level 4. And you'll know what it's applying to it. That's our objective, and it will be retroactive to the beginning of this year. So it's going to count from January through December. And what's going to happen is come January 1st, that becomes the new rankings by which players are accepted into tournaments of 2021.
So January 1st, 2021, all of your results from 2020 will have been given a level, and you will have a ranking, and then you will enter tournaments based on that ranking, and you'll be accepted or not accepted based on who enters that tournament and their ranking.
Correct.
So like last week's Supers Excellence, was that basically like a 1.4?
I don't know. We haven't done the assignment that it's called tagging. It hasn't taken place yet because they haven't released the tables yet.
And when you do that, does it take into account the difference between like an A draw, B draw, C draw, and Supers?
It should. It should be waterfall. Yes. Yes.
How do your national level 1, level 2s factor into your best 6?
They, my understanding is going to be that they count before your sectional events count. Because right now, when you think of the national events, they're already counting as part of your sectional standing. So they'll probably take precedence. So if your highest 6, it's 6 national tournaments you played, that will be your highest 6. Because they are the highest point value. In the new system, level 1 remains as you know it now. It's a national tournament. So is level 2 and level 3. Level 4, it's still a bit of a national tournament because national only gives us a certain amount of them to give out. So I can tell you that we're only going to have 8 level 4 events in 2021. Level 5, 6, and 7s, those we're going to place as we see the market needs to meet the current demand of players that it has in inventory, and we'll probably give it some space for possible growth and perhaps players coming from other sections to play our events.
So Julio, to clarify on ranking, your ranking in 2021 is your best 6 tournaments. If those are 6 level 1s, those are your best 6. If there's 4 level 1s and 2 level 2s, those are your best 6. If you play 1 level 1, a couple level 2s, and the rest are sectional 4s, that's the point chart that you'll be using for your ranking.
Correct.
Will your level 4s be cross-sectional? I'm from New England, and we're doing some cross-sectional, some closed section.
The level 4s, I told you we're going to have 8. 4 of them are open. 4 of them are closed.
Yeah, we're doing the same.
Yes, ma'am.
So even like the local opens, their points still count towards the new point system? Today they only count in the sectional, but not national.
The open events in this year will be counting towards that ranking, and I'm going to show you in a minute how we're planning to tag them. How we're hoping that we're going to be allowed to tag them when we have to identify that. So I'm going to...
Why are the shadow rankings invisible until Q3?
Couldn't tell you exactly the reason, but I know that they're still working on the technology to develop. They haven't finished it. It's not being run by Tennis Link. It's an entire new system that runs it.
I would guess that they don't have the system completed, and they're anticipating Q3 before they get the system online. It's not like it's existing now, and they're just hiding it. It's just that it doesn't really exist yet.
Okay, that makes sense. So would you imagine that in future years you can see the shadow rankings?
It will be the ranking after 2020.
Yeah, there won't be
January
a
1st,
shadow.
2021, that will be the ranking system.
The shadow ranking is simply the transition.
And like I said, they're working overtime to get it right. And I don't know this for a fact, but I strongly suspect that they don't have it done yet. And that's why
They don't.
they pushed it to Q3 to give them time to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, what I'm going to show you now, the graph on the left you've already seen, and you can see to the right that it says 2020 at the top, and it says level 3, 2 events, level 4, 8 events, then level 5, level 6, and level 7. Okay, what I'm going to show you now is how we're trying to. Okay, this is still subjected to national saying yes, but this is our intent of what we're going to try to do. How we're going to tag our events to be counted in 2020 in that shadow ranking. So the idea is that we'll have the supers, 2 of them will be level 3s, 8 of them will be level 4s, and then I think 3 of them are left to be level 5s. Of the champs, a percentage of them we're seeing as level 5 and a percentage as level 6s.
How are you determining that?
Have not done that yet with the committee. Which percentage goes to which?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a thought that comes to mind?
I'm processing it. There's got to be some way to differentiate stronger champs from weaker champs. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
there probably is a way.
Then the sorry.
Are you on the SCMZ tournament list going to start listing each one of those tournaments for the remainder of the year as to which one is which level, so that we can have?
Yes, that's what I said earlier, that once the tables are released from national and made public, we're hoping that will take place sometime in February. So by March, you're going to be able to go on Tennis Link like you do now to register for a tournament. And it'll say, right now it says ATA, and in parentheses it may say SCMZ or CMZ or Challenger. And in another parenthesis next to it, our intent is to have there say 2021 level 3 or 2021 level 4.
So the timeline to help you is the point chart from national has to come out. The section has to get approval from national to allocate X, Y, and Z tournaments as level 3, 4, or 5s. Once they've approved that, then that'll all come out.
So are we going to stay on the same timetable that the level 1 and level 2 nationals are not going to conflict with the level 3 and 4s?
Yes.
So levels 1, 2, and 3 nationals will stay on the same schedule as they currently are. Those are set.
Okay.
Yes. Good question. The opens, we think that they'll be tagged as 5 and 6s where we're seeking. The Challenger 2 days will be 6s, and the Challenger 1 day will be 7s. So as you can see now that it'll be, in this year, playing an open event will be valuable to everybody that plays in it. Any questions on that slide?
So if level 6 and 7 also have the points towards a new ranking system, would you not allow Super Champ to play L6 and L7?
Okay, in 2020, a Super Champ player can only play a Super Champ tournament.
Oh, okay.
But in 2021, there's no real benefit to a old Super Champ player playing a level 6 or 7 because it wouldn't be one of their top 6 tournaments, right? The points will be so low on a 6 or 7 that
slide's
you
coming up.
probably wouldn't be motivated to play that tournament if you were a former Super Champ player.
The next slide coming up, I believe, shows you how the tournaments are weighted on the scale, and you're gonna see that it's really, again, there's a player who's that good of a player will have no real incentive to play a level 5 or 6, except on some very rare occasions like I live in town, the tournament is my club, like I described earlier. Okay, so these are the 7th level tournaments, and this is how the tournaments are going to be weighted on the table. So for example, a level 1 right now, if you win it, I believe it's 3,000 points. Where if you were to win a level 5, you're getting 300 points. And you see that aside from perhaps development or advice from a coach or convenience in town, there'll be no incentive for a player that's already achieved a certain level within level 1, 2, and 3s to maybe want to play a lot of 5 and 6s.
Can you say that again?
There'll be, based on the weight of the distribution of the points, there's really no incentive for a player that's successful at the level 1, 2, and 3, and maybe even, to actually want to play a lot of level 5 and 6s. It won't replace their top 6 scoring tournaments.
It'll be a tournament, but I can see players wanting to play that tournament in town in a higher age group, right?
Yep.
And it's an extra couple of matches, and it's convenient. It's not going to really help their ranking, but it would be great to play it.
Do you get points for being a player, or is it just rounds? Like, you beat somebody ranked higher than you, do you get bonus points?
If there's bonus points, again, the tables have not been released yet, so we don't know how that's going to look regards to bonus points.
Isn't the conventional wisdom that bonus points will continue, but not as... Right now, you can get bonus points for beating somebody like on a national level down to 200, I think, or 250. But I think the idea would be that you would get rewarded for a good win on a higher level, not all the way down to 250.
Yeah. But not, again, our opinion, not that they've said they're going to be in place.
So back to your San Antonio example of last weekend. So like a level 4, is it always going to be capped across the section with the number of players?
In 2021, yes.
So 256,
Mhm.
your example. So then how does it solve for us knowing ahead of time about our schedule? When we don't know if you're
That's a good
playing
question.
Oh, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't help you. It helps the tournament director, right? But here's the point. I think that right now at the national level, you can enter multiple tournaments because you might get into one, but you wouldn't get into another. So the same is going to probably happen for those level 5s, right? You might
Okay,
get into one, but you might not get into another one.
Before Jack gets me into a hole,
on college admissions though. What if I get
It's-
3 and I pick one and don't withdraw until the last minute?
it's not official that you're going to be allowed to enter more than one event at a time. As we sit here today, you're only going to be able to enter one event at a time. We are working hard as the 17 sections to come up with a way in which we're going to allow you to enter multiple, like you do now for the national tournaments, and you can select which is your top priority, your second, and your third.
And is that basically because the technology doesn't exist to be able to do that?
Yeah.
So they're looking to try
When they
to...
do it now for level 2s and level 3s, it's manually done by the staff in Florida, the national office. There's no technology to do it.
I think the other issue is trying to get all 17 sections on the same page and doing the exact same thing with entry deadlines, with formats, that sort of thing, so that can be automated.
Yes. To make that happen, all 17 sections, for example, level 5, we have to come up to an agreement that level 5s across the country are all going to close on Wednesdays at 11:59 p.m. and they're going to close, say, 14 days prior to the event start.
And you're going to notify which players got in
Yes.
13 days after the tournament?
Well,
That's
I don't know the level your player plays now, but like a level 1, level 2, and probably level 3s often, it'll probably be, like right now it's about a month. So if you're going to have to book traveling, you have enough reasonable time to book your travel. But as you start getting closer to just local tournaments, like a level 5, level 6, and level 7s, it might be less than a month. It might be just 14 days or 21 days.
but not like Thursday before Friday. Like,
Believe it or not, there's some sections right now that close registration 3 days before the event starts. I don't think that's going to happen. It's too difficult to apply something like that to everybody. The same way that if there was a section that closed 2 months before it happens, the two extremes are never going to take place when we're looking for something that 17 groups throughout the country are going to agree on.
With there being a limited pool of players for each of these tournaments now, are there going to be more tournaments on a calendar to choose from?
That's what the first thing that we're already doing this year is we're increasing offerings.
Okay.
And next year we're going to have to increase even more offerings. Yes. I wouldn't be surprised that you can see maybe on a weekend that there's 4 level 5 tournaments throughout the section on the same weekend. Sir, you put your hand up. Did we answer it already?
My question really has to do with the open tournaments that are going to be like considered a level 5 or so, 5 or 6. If you've got a national class player that wants to throw in another tournament, you know, that player is going to have to play up 2 or 3 age groups anyway to get decent matches in. So those level 5 and 6 points, they're only applying to, if you've got a 12 and she's playing up in 18s, those points are only going to apply to an 18 ranking that she's not going to get to for 6 years.
They won't be there.
They won't be there.
No.
So it's a throwaway tournament that you're just going to get some matches.
In the circumstance when the player is that elite, yes.
Okay.
Other questions for Julio?
I think, you know, what, in the beginning you said, you know, we're trying to push as many players to super as we can this year, right? So I was just wondering if USTA Texas has done the math, you know, if we have a large pool of super next year, but then all of the tournaments will have selection processes. Are we gonna end up having some bottom super not being able to play any tournaments?
Okay, there's no supers next year.
Oh, yes.
Yes, they're gone.
Yeah.
So they're in 2021, they're gonna get in based on the strength of their national ranking.
Right.
So by allowing more players to become super this year, we increase the amount of kids that have a better chance to get better points towards populating that national ranking that's being run as a shadow ranking.
Because keep in mind, our players are going to be competing against players from other sections, sometimes to get into our own tournaments in 2021. Because players from other sections can play our level 5s. Players from other sections can play 4 of our level 4s. So if our players, you know, giving our players the opportunity to improve their shadow ranking, which becomes their ranking, is important for helping them.
To get back to, I think what your question is, increasing the numbers of level 5s is probably going to be the key thing for all across the country, I think, right?
Yeah.
How many level 5s each section is going to have, how many weekends are going to have them. That's going to be a really important thing to get right so that there is enough volume of competition for everybody who wants to compete. And I think the Texas section is very much on top of that idea. And I would think that a lot of tournaments that are open tournaments this year, that are strong open tournaments, could easily become a level 5 in the 2021.
Yeah, the open, what we currently know is open tournaments will have to become level 5 and 6s. And even on top of those, we're probably going to have to add even more tournaments.
More level 5s.
Yeah, to give you more level 5, 6s, and 7s. Because to give you an idea, right now, when you went over, I don't know, well, not so much the X, because the excellence is only 16 players. But let's say that you went over and you played a tournament that the draws were 32 players per draw. And let's say the boys 16s had A draw, B draw, C draw, and D draw. Okay? In the new system, that's 4 different tournaments.
So they'd have to be tagged, you know, as a
Does
different
that make
tournament.
sense?
Yeah.
But in the new system, it's literally 4 different tournaments because that A draw might be the level 4. All the other players that are playing B draw or C draw, they're not even getting into that level 4, and so there's going to have to be LF5s that weekend for them to participate in, and it's going to be a matter of getting the right number of tournaments distributed around the state, and it probably reduces travel quite a bit as well for those players.
So you're saying like USTA Texas has planned to increase the number of tournaments
Oh, yes.
by, you know, that much.
Yeah, do you remember the first thing that we started already doing this year was offerings. So we're already increasing the amount of tournaments, and next year we're going to have to increase even more to accommodate our current players.
I mean, if you think about it right now, if you're it used to be if you were a champ player, you basically could only play 1 tournament a month and then maybe play some opens, right? If you're a super champ player, you essentially, there's 1 super major zone, and if you can find an open tournament, or if you're good enough to play a high level national, you can do that. But next year, if you're playing L5s, you might be able to play L5 every weekend of the month.
Coach Dewey next, then Mrs. Wasserman.
We have a question from Facebook. Ivone Natal said, could a director host concurrent tournaments like a 32 draw L5 and another draw L6?
No.
Ms. Wasserman.
The objective is that that tournament director will be able to give better attention, care, and provide much better quality of product because they're focusing on the one event that they've been awarded.
So what's going on with orange and green ball? Are you guys keeping that pretty much the same to progress out of orange to green?
For now, it's the same. They're working on a new product in that area, and they're also working on a new product for junior team tennis. But for now, it's that way. Don't know when it'll be implemented, but something's coming.
Okay.
I know we're a few minutes over. Julio and Coach Notis and I will stick around for a few more minutes. Everybody who needs to go and take their child home and eat dinner, do that. We'll also have another meeting once the point charts come out and we get a little bit more information. We'll have another meeting and update you again. So thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank y'all.
Ask questions.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Thanks for coming. Yeah. Was that helpful? Oh, yeah. Way, shape, or form?
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
We're gonna, it's Facebook. Yeah, it's recorded. You can go and pull anything you want from it.
You going to Houston this weekend or no?
I'm going to Houston.
Coach Notis is going to Houston.
Where you all staying?
I think the Comfort Suites.
I went ahead and just did the area.